What is up, YouTube? This is going to be a very basic guide on how to build your Ranger. Now, this is how I build the Ranger personally. People might have different opinions on how to do it. This is how I do it. And specifically, this is how I do it for the longbow. So I'm going to go off how I think you should build the Ranger when you're first starting in the game, when you're level 1 all the way to level 25. Now, there is two ways to level up the skill tree. Of course, during alpha, you can respec at any point, so I would just use this as a basic guide on what I think I would be doing, especially if there is no respecs in the future. Let's start off with how I would do it for a single target build. If I want to do max damage to one target, if I'm going to be soloing in the world, and I'm not going to be doing much AoE farming, maybe you're going to be killing Minotaurs one at a time. In my opinion, you start off with Scattershot. Now, Scattershot is a very good ability because, first of all, it has low cooldown. Second of all, your passive lowers the cooldown of both Scattershot and Barrage. So 2 points in there. Third of all, I will pick up weighted ammo because this will give both your Scattershot, your auto attacks, and your Barrage slow. This is the ammo I would use for single target all the way through. I pick up concentrated Scattershot next to do as much damage with the Scattershot as possible. Concentrated Scattershot, you can hold it, and it does a lot of single target damage. It's one of your main damage abilities at this point. So, once we have these abilities, I personally like to go into Disengage first. This is just 1 point, this is free. What this allows you to do is you're able to make distance from the mob. If the mob gets close to you, you dive back and you snare in the same time. Very useful ability. Next, I would go for Vine. Vine Field is another CC and it roots your enemies. So, some enemies, they get immunity to... Well, actually, all enemies get immunity to your slows after 10 seconds. Well, after 20 seconds. At that point, you cannot slow them for 10 seconds. So what you do is you drop Vine Field and you root them down. It's just one more way to kite big mobs that require a long time to kill. Now that we have a point into Vine Field, what I would do next is I would get Headshot maxed out. So Headshot into Mortal Headshot. Headshot does more damage once the mob is under 50% HP with this upgrade, so don't use it until they're low on HP. It's basically your finisher. It's your highest burst finisher you have. It's very fast casting and does a lot of damage. Now that we have Headshot, we have a reason to go into Snipe. What Snipe does is, it does a really, really big opener. It's your best opener. It takes a long time to charge, but it does a lot of damage. As you can see here, now what you can do is you can open with Snipe, and if it lowers the enemy enough, you can follow up with a Headshot and just insta-kill it. Now, of course, this is a low-level mob, so I killed it in one, but that's your opener, your number one opener. Now that we have Snipe, we're going to upgrade Snipe. So we have Heart-Seeking Snipe. Basically, what this does is it gives it a 30% chance to crit against enemies that are further away than 20 meters. So again, if you're doing one single target farming, you're gonna open as far away as possible. So you go for this upgrade first. Snipe will more often crit. After that is done, I would consider putting a point into Hasting Snipe. It gives you a 20% increase in attack speed for 5 seconds after you open. So this is pretty much close to what you're gonna have. After this, I would put 1 point in Hunt of the Tiger to give more crit damage and 1 point into Mark of the Tiger to have more crit chance on the target you're hitting. Once you have this is the bread and butter of your single target. Let me show you exactly what an opener looks like. You will open with Snipe. Once Snipe is almost loaded, you put down your Mark. You can follow up with some Barrage. Once Barrage goes through, you can go double. You can go double Scattershot. Once he's slowed, you can slow him down even more with a Snare, and then you can just rinse and repeat. More Scattershot. Here I can go for Headshot. I can use Lightning Reload for another Headshot. And most mobs will die in this rotation or less. This is a bit of a tough mob because he has stuns. Anyway, that is your rotation. Now you have 10 points left to put into the tree. Here it's preference. There is no real, this has to be first. If you want more AoE damage or another ability, you can put points into Thundering Shot. This is fine. You can put points into CC Break. This is fine. Airstrike gives you verticality. So for example, let's say you want to be able to run away from things at a vertical distance. You can go jump Airstrike into Disengage and climb up cliffs. That's pretty cool. Other options are you can go for Raining Death. Only get Raining Death after you get Thundering Shot because Thundering Shot buffs Raining Death's damage. And with the 4 extra points, you can also go for double Disengage. That's a decent option. You can go for Bear Trap if you like, and you can go for Concussive Arrows as well. Concussive Arrows are very good versus casters, and they increase the damage of your Headshot. With one last point, I would probably put my last point into... Oh, also, Ensnaring Vine Field. This gives snares to enemies that are inside of Vine Field. Very useful, especially if you're playing with Concussive Arrows. So this is basically the endgame build that I go for, regardless of how I start. This is what I sit on at all times. I will only respec if I'm playing versus very specific matchups or very specific content. Like, for example, if I'm group farming, I'll take off weighted arrows and put on barbed arrows or concussive arrows, depending on what I'm doing. Now, if you are going to be playing more of an AoE farmer, whether it be solo or in groups, I would approach this much differently. The start is the same. Scatter shot twice, very useful. I would put in weighted ammo again, very useful. Upgrade your scatter shot, and now things will be a bit different. I would not get disengaged immediately. Why? Because I think Vinefield is very good for AoE. After Vinefield, I would consider getting double point in Thundering Shot. The second point gives you AoE on Thundering Shot. Once we have double Thundering Shot, we can go for Lightning Reload, which will give you one more point in any of these abilities. Keep in mind, this is an AoE ability. This is an AoE ability. You can double down either one you want. They're all very useful. Once we have this, I would put one more point into Ensnaring Vinefield. And here, you can probably get Disengage as well. Just a very useful ability. Once we have all of this, we are going to go for a point in Raining Death. I would say once you have Raining Death with all these points, you are good to solo AoE whatever you want. I'll show you really quickly what this would look like in rotation. Again, important to get the lightning arrow down first to shock, because this does more damage when you shock. All right? Lightning reload for another shot. All right, dead. So again, once this is all here, and you have all the points that I'm showing on screen, I'd probably pick up my hunt here at this point. The hunt is decent, it adds more crit damage, especially if you're leveling your bow and putting crit damage onto your build. And from here on out, it's just preference. You add whatever you want. I'd probably start going into more single target abilities. So I'd probably get my headshots now. I'd probably pick up my snipe here. I would look into picking up maybe some disengage. Airstrike is a really good ability. You can get it early. It does AoE damage. Not a lot, but it's good for AoE farming. So pick up the Airstrike as well. And finish things off, we can get our points in one bear trap. We can go for concussive arrows as well as an option. Secondary disengage, and we can just go for Mark the Tiger for single. And that's, again, same ending, different path. As for the weapon tree, we'll do whatever your offhand is first. It doesn't matter what you get. Get whatever you want on your sword. The only thing you want to make sure you get are 4 points in critical damage. I would do this both for AoE and for PvP and for single target. I think this is probably your best bang for your buck. Specifically because you're going to be getting Hunt of the Tiger as your main hunt, and that synergizes really well with it. And secondly, once we go to Longbow, you'll be getting most likely Heartseeker, and that synergizes really well with it as well. So, starting with Longbow, I prefer Wounds. I think Stagger is kind of meh. Wounds is really good versus healers overall, and is great in PvP, so I just have this here at all times. I would put points into critical projectiles, so more crit damage from everything you shoot. And I start putting points into Deadly Finisher Chance. Again, you want Deadly Finisher Chance to proc your wound, and also in the future to proc your Heartseekers. Once this is available, I will put Follow Through, most likely if you need mana regen. If you don't need mana regen, you have a bard in your party, or you're not soloing, you can go for Keen Edge for more damage, but for now, let's just put Follow Through. Once we have this, again, immediately pick up your critical damage. That's 2 points here. And we can put 1 point into duration, because I think that's better than my weapon damage combo attacks. Like, just having longer duration on wound is nice. So let's put 2 points into duration here. Here we will pick up another wound procer, and we'll go again critical damage. And we will put points into trigger chance for our finishers. Once we have this tree open, I'd say probably your best bet is to just put points into Heartseeker. So 2 points here, and 1 point in each of these. From here, we can move into 2 points into Bullseye. Once we have 2 points into critical passive, we're going to put points into Finisher Chance. And once this tree is open, just put points into Heartseeker. You can put 1 point into Bullseye. You pick up Rhythmic Swings. And the last point you put into... Once you have both points into critical damage, you pick up 1 point into Duration. It's the best option out of the 6. And our next tree opens. We get wounds for a secondary proc for wounds. We get double crit damage again because we're going to be doing a lot of crit damage. And we will unlock some deadly extended finishers here. Proc chance at least. Now the last tree opens, we'll pick up Heartseeker for the full effect. We'll get 1 point in Bullseye, and we will go for Rhythmic Swings, which just increases our chances of proccing these deadly finishers. We have 1 point left. We're going to put that last point into our finisher chance. And that is the weapon tree for bow. And basically what you're looking for is, this bow is just giving me passive crit chance, as well as passive crit chance off the sword. Now, how does Heartseeker work? Heartseeker is pretty good for single target because it does multiple things for you. While you're auto-attacking the target, it will give bleed. Now, if the enemy is bleeding, you have double value off of Heartseeker. That means you have 10% increased accuracy, which is a really big deal. You have 10% increased damage, and you have 20% increased critical damage. It means if you're fighting something you need to burst down, just a few auto attacks will make your next ability hit for a lot more than it usually would. As for the stamina skills, in my opinion, max out second wind as fast as possible. After you're done with that, max out until you get spring step. The blocking one, you can get. Some rangers I've seen play shields. They're not bad. You can consider this as well. But this is the last thing I max out. And that's pretty much it for the build. This is how I build the character. Do remember every time you log in to pop all of your buffs. These are permanent. Make sure your hunt is running. Make sure your thorns are running. Your regeneration. Keep in mind, Strider does have a maximum of 15 minutes, so you have to refresh it every 15 minutes. And that is the Ranger, guys. I will do another video pretty soon talking about exactly how to use the Ranger in dueling, in 1v1s, in PvP. So look out for that video, and how to apply these spells depending on what class you're fighting against. Hope you guys enjoyed the vid. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time.